guys, welcome to another Mindset Moment with me, Adam. I'm glad you're here with me today. Today I had a realization that there are a few actors in television and film that kind of get burned into your memory for a certain character or role they play in. Like if I were to say the actor Nick Offerman, you know who comes to mind? Good old Ron Swanson. Or Chris Evans, Captain America. But then, and of course, you get the classic actors like Bill Cosby for many years, Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable. And then you get the other ones like Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, Steve Carell, Michael Scott, Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter. What about Arnold? You don't even need the last name because we all know the Terminator. And of course, you know, Mr. Wig himself, William Shatner, Captain Kirk. But what about Chadwick Boseman? Does the Black Panther spring to mind? It does for me. I understand Chadwick Boseman may not have as much pull as a Arnold or Steve Carell or Hamill. But to me, and many out there, he will always be the king of Wakanda. But in September, the world awoke to sad news that this famous Marvel actor died of colon cancer. This shocking news became even greater when we understood that the last few years of his life, when they became the news, how he lived his life became more public. In 2014, Chadwick Boseman was cast by Marvel in the biggest acting break that any actor dreams of. A multi-movie deal to play one of the Marvel's lead characters. And he starred in that role in 2018's Black Panther. And was set to do so for the second Black Panther 2, as the fictional king of the nation of Wakanda and the legendary hero, the Black Panther. The movie was a great success. The franchise is still a great success. And what made it even better was Chadwick Boseman took the role personally, using it to do good in every avenue of possible. Unfortunately, in 2016, Chadwick was diagnosed with colon cancer and started treatment. He did treatment as privately as possible, in between filming where no one would know about it and it wouldn't affect his role. The legend of Chadwick Boseman and his most famous role as the Black Panther is up in the air now. Since he has passed, it's up to Disney's highly paid producers and executives to find the new Black Panther. But in his one featured film that he gave us, Chadwick as King T'Challa gave us many great lines. Who can forget Wakanda Forever? Or, in times of crisis, the wise build bridges while the foolish build barriers. Okay. Or how about this one? Every breath you take is mercy from me. Okay, that last one may not be on any movie poster or the catchiest of catchphrases, but in context and from the comics and in the movie, was pretty darn awesome. But that famous line from the Black Panther brings up the question for today: what really is mercy, and why is it important? These questions that come up naturally and can be answered by looking into the biblical example of David. David is a diversely talented young man that we can find in the Old Testament of the Bible. We have previously spent time looking at David the poet, David the musician, David the warrior, and if you missed those two, you can go back into my channel and look them up there. But today we're going to understand what it means to be merciful through the life of David by learning the single and important points Be merciful to all as God is. But before we jump into the history of David's life, I want to understand, help us work through what it means to be merciful. What is mercy? The dictionary gives us the standard definition that mercy is compassion or forgiveness shown towards someone whom it is within one's power to punish or harm. So apparently mercy is very familiar, very similar to compassion and forgiveness, to showing a sense of leniency, like a judge extending mercy to a criminal by giving him a lesser sentence than what he or she deserves. This idea of mercy is a little handicapped in a certain way, in which we are limiting our understanding and ability to truly know what mercy is, because we're not looking at it through a biblical sense, a biblical lens, to see things from God's perspective. Mercy is one of the most essential qualities of God. Specifically, it designates that qualities in God which he faithfully keeps his promises, maintains his covenant relationship with his people despite their unworthiness and unfaithfulness. The biblical meaning of mercy is rich, it's complicated, and there are many synonyms that express dimensions, percentages of mercy, like kindness, loving kindness, goodness, grace, favor, pity, compassion, steadfast love. But prominence in the concept of mercy is compassionate disposition to forgive an offender, to help or spare him in a sorry plight. Just like Mr. Black Panther was telling us early, right? No. Really? No? Let's find out why. This definition of mercy helps me understand the mercy a little bit more, taking the concept that we think we understand and get to display it in our lives and taking it back to God, because we see God as merciful because of how he acted towards mankind, the sinful offender, the screw up, the guilty who deserve death and punishment. You and me. Jesus came to earth as mercy incarnate, willingly giving up his life for a race of men who are guilty in every sense of the term. Why would he do that? Why would he give up his life for mine? Because God is compassionate. God is love. God is mercy and grace. Even to people like you and me who aren't kind, who are kind of a jerk, who aren't loving, definitely not compassionate, sometimes not even good. We're just sinners. But by Jesus dying on the cross and then rising again 3 days later, Jesus' ultimate act of mercy and love for humanity was on display, creating a way for us to be given, if we ask for it. So then how can we be merciful like God, since it is what God is and what we need to be? The first way to understand is to follow the example in the Bible of the law. God teaches in the Old Testament law of how to be merciful and compassionate. Look at Daniel 15:7-11, where it says, "If there is among you a poor man of your brethren within any of the gates in your land which the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not harden your hearts, nor shut your hand from your poor brother, but you shall open your hand wide to them and willingly lend them sufficient for his needs," whatever he needs. "Beware lest there be a wicked thought in your heart, saying, the 7th year, the year of release, is at hand, and your eye be evil against your poor brother, and not give him nothing, and you give him nothing. And he cry out to the Lord against you, and it becomes sin among you. You shall surely give to him, and your heart shall not be grieved when you give to him, because for this thing the Lord your God will bless you in all your works, and in which all you put your hand. For the Lord your God will never cease from this land. Therefore I command you, saying, you shall open your hand wide to your brother, to your poor, to your needy in your land. Here we learn from the law written by Moses that we are to be generous by using the poor as the example. Moses called the people to be filled with compassion and generosity in how they act with poor people, to loan them money if they need to, and not be stubborn, not be hard-hearted towards them. Be merciful, just like God is. It's important to know that we cannot earn mercy. Kind of like earn mercy points or something like a credit card reward system. No. According to Scripture, God's mercy and compassion cannot be earned by us. Instead, God bestows mercy upon whomever he chooses according to his prerogative. Just like one of those people was David. David is a great example of someone God was shown mercy towards. Someone who we can learn what grace and compassion and mercy is during seasons of his life. David, as we've seen in our study so far, is a skilled and talented guy in many ways, and was God's chosen man as king of Israel since Saul was torn from the kingdom and leadership. David was God's anointed king. He was hanging around the kingdom and gaining in popularity, as we saw last time. The popularity of David as a warrior, as a son-in-law to the king, drove Saul nuts. I'm not saying drove him nuts like the car in front of you for the last 2 miles has the blinker on. It's not, and definitely not turning left. No. I'm saying drove nuts as in he openly tried to assassinate, to kill David multiple times. Look that up if you want to. 1 Samuel 18. Multiple attempts of murder. Like it's nothing. King Saul was so crazy nuts over David, it forced David to flee, to become a fugitive from his own country, from his home. This period of life where David was a Dr. Richard Kimball, David was the fugitive, we get multiple marvelous examples of mercy. The first being in Samuel chapter 24, where it reads, now it happened, when Saul had returned from following the Philistines, that it was told him, saying, take note, David is in the wilderness of En-gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men from all Israel, and went to seek David and his men in the rocks of the wild goats. So he came to the sheepfold by the road, and there was a cave. Saul went in to attend his need. David and his men were staying in the recesses of the cave. All right, let's paint a picture. Crazy King Saul hated his son-in-law so much that he wanted him dead. So Saul took 3,000 elite soldiers, chosen, not just the run-of-the-mill privates, chosen warriors, to hunt down David on a rumor of his location. Granted, he was right where David was. That's not the point. The point is, this is weird. In that hunt, David and his followers hide in the recesses, in the back, in the crevices, in the corners of the cave until things calm down. Smart. Either fight or hide. They chose hide. It just so happens this is the exact cave that King Saul went into. Cover his feet. All right, maybe you didn't get it. To attend his needs. Relieve himself. See a man about a dog. Piddle. Number 1. Make lemonade. You get it? This, with Saul being occupied, it presented David an interesting option. David could sneak his way over to Saul, kill the king, end his struggle, go home, restore what was stolen from him, his name, his property, his family. But on the other hand, by doing so, David would have to take the life of a man who God placed as king over the land. Should David kill the king and have a much easier life, or display mercy? The kind of mercy that we've talked about so much already today. The kind of compassion and favor that God displays. Instead of door 1, door 2, David picks door 3? Listen to verse 4. Then David said to his men, "This is the day which the Lord say to you, Behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hands, that you may do it to him as it seems good to you." And David arose and secretly cut off the corner of Saul's robe. Now it happened after that David's heart troubled him, because he had cut Saul's robe. And he said to his men, "The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch out my hand against him, seeing that he is the anointed of the Lord." So David restrained his servants with these words and did not allow them to rise against Saul. Saul got up from the cave and went his way. Because David respected the leader of King Saul and the position of King of Israel, God's anointed and chosen leader, David could not kill Saul, even though it would make his life a lot easier. Kind of a bonus lesson for us about honoring and respecting our leadership, even the crazy ones like Saul. But for David, his unusual approach in handling Saul by cutting off the corner of his robe while he was voiding his bladder, busting a grumpy, whatever. This is some extreme concentration by Saul. Let's just leave it there. This third option of David seems like a win-win-win. But as we read, David didn't feel like a winner after doing this. Not even Merciful either. David felt guilty. This was more than just an act against the king. It was a rebellion against the Lord, who commanded Israel to not curse their rulers and had previously punished the Israelites who expressed rebellious attitude against authority. As we look briefly into the way David's mind works, it's a great teaching moment for us of how we should live, how to respect those above us, how to trust the Lord to handle our problems and not make things in our own hands, not to take things in our own hands. But in this moment that we can clearly see respect for leadership, trust in the Lord, mercy is all over this, and this theme can't be missed. David could have killed the king and ended his problems. Instead, he showed mercy to someone that probably didn't deserve mercy. The man who lied to him, who tried to have him killed in battle, who was jealous over him, who attempted to kill him multiple times, who hated him, who invaded his house and made him a fugitive. The same mercy, though, that Jesus displayed to us is the same mercy that David is showing to King Saul twice. Twice? Twice. After this incident of David and the king's robe from Piddling King Saul, we can see in the rest of the chapter, David explains to Saul of the need to be trusted, a reality check. And again, it's a great chapter. Finish it on your own time. But I would like to jump just 2 chapters later to chapter 26, where once again, David is placed in a very similar situation. King Saul becomes dreadfully unaware of his surroundings in life. And by the way, with these two larger examples, I kind of wonder how Saul became such a good warrior if he was so dreadfully unaware of his surroundings. But looking at chapter 26, verses 5 through 8. So David arose and came to the place where Saul had encamped. David saw that the place where Saul lay, and Abner, the son of Ner, the commander of his army. Now Saul lay within the camp, and the people encamped all around him. Then David answered and said to Ahimelech, the Hittite, and to Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, the brother of Joab, saying, "Who will go down with me to Saul's camp?" And Abishai said, "I will go down with you." So David and Abishai came to the people by night, and there Saul lay sleeping within the camp, with his spear stuck in the ground by his head. And Abner and the people lay all around him. Then Abishai said to David, "God delivered your enemy into your hand this day. Now therefore, please, let me strike him at once with the spear, right to the earth, and I will not have to strike him a second time." Okay, so once again, David is in a very similar situation. He given an opportunity to make his life easier by deciding the fate of another person. David is given the chance to play executioner on the reigning king of Israel. It's the exact same pro versus con as last time. Only this time there's a giant spear stuck right next to him. The weapon is already drawn and ready to go. It just one, and he's done. David chooses mercy over revenge. Let me just read verses 10 and 11 to see, so you can get a taste of what happens. In verse 10 it says, David added, "As the Lord lives, the Lord will certainly strike him down. Either his day will come and he will die, or he will go into battle and perish. However, because of the Lord, I will never lift my hand against the Lord anointed." Taking the spear and the water jug by his head, let's go. David gave us two pretty darn great examples of mercy. And the Bible has a lot more of them. It's almost like God's trying to teach us this complicated thing called mercy. I would encourage you, once again, to finish reading chapter 26 so you can get the rest of the story of how David shows Saul that he could have killed him and showed him mercy instead by giving him a plea for reason from David. It's a great speech. But it's like we still need to understand the point. Be merciful to God. Be merciful to all as God is. Being merciful to all is not easy. We need to be like David. Being merciful and displaying mercy to all of God's creation. Our spouse, our teachers, the cars on the morning commute with us, our boss, our children, our neighbor, our coworker, even the leadership of our great state and country. When we come to the point that David is being put in, like King Saul, we should not be so fast to seek revenge or justice or to humiliate another, but instead be quick to show compassionate mercy. Because mercy and compassion are most perfectly demonstrated and characterized by God's own merciful and loving care for his people. By the gift of mercy through Jesus Christ's death and resurrection on the cross. Jesus gave each of us this free gift of mercy by his death in our place. We too should be quick to give out mercy as much as possible to those who do not deserve it, like David. So, how can we apply this daunting principle of mercy to our lives today? How about tomorrow we let the car in ahead of us who took forever to merge into construction and at the last minute just kind of come in? Does that count? Is that display of godly mercy like David? No. That's kind of more just being a nice person and good person instead of being merciful. A better example would be letting the coworker take credit for the work that you did by letting it slide, by not trying to correct them, by not going ape on an internet troll or extended family member who is an extreme left or extreme right politically, and yelling at you about something that already is easily provable. Mercy is showing compassion and forgiveness, not blasting them back. Our friend the Black Panther may have had a great line about mercy not being given by letting him live. Pretty sure T'Challa, though, missed the real point of mercy. Being compassionate. See you next time.